D.C. That news conference wrapping up where the president spoke for more than an hour. He was talking about his upcoming meeting with the Russian president, also talking about speaking with the Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky as well in that. But the headline today is that the president is activating the National Guard to the city of Washington, D.C. He is also having federal control take over the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. That is something that a big step that he's announced today as part of announcing and declaring, I should say, a public safety emergency within the District of Columbia. President Trump saying that the D.C. will be liberated, calling today Liberation Day for Washington, D.C. He also had words of warning this morning for a couple of other cities across the country, including Chicago, including New York City, including Los Angeles, basically saying that kind of putting them on notice that if things are not to his liking when it comes to crime in those cities, that he might explore ways of taking similar steps in some other cities across the country as well. So that was the president speaking in Washington, D.C. at the White House. We did also show you earlier there was a rally outside with a number of speakers, what they were calling the Free D.C. rally, opposing these steps announced by the president today, because he had kind of been teasing this announcement for a couple of days now on Truth Social. Basically, we kind of had inklings and indications of what it was going to include. And so that was the announcement this morning. We will continue to follow all this here on Fox Local. We will go ahead and wrap.
Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you and welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Busy day ahead. Want to let you know some of what you can expect over this next hour with us here. We've got a lot to cover. I want to let you know we're going to hear from Governor Ron DeSantis, who talked about redistricting. As that becomes a big talk with the state house, the Speaker of the State House, I should say, calling on a committee to look at that issue here in the state of Florida as the conversations across the country continue as well. We're going to dive into that in just a minute. A public hearing scheduled to begin today on the rate hike for Florida Power and Light, a $10 billion rate hike, historically high rate. A lot of controversy over that. We heard on Friday, according to the filings in this case, that FPL has proposed a settlement, so that went in front of the Public Service Commission today on what was supposed to be the start of about 2 weeks of public hearings about the rate hike. Interesting developments there. We'll get you caught up on that in just a little bit because they have already adjourned for the day. So we will get you caught up here in just a little bit. Also tracking a story out of our nation's capital where President Donald Trump earlier today announced he is taking federal control over the D.C. Police Department and also deploying the National Guard to Washington, D.C. as part of an effort to cut down on crime and also reduce homelessness there. So we will hear from President Trump in just a little bit. But again, I do want to begin with Governor Ron DeSantis, who was in Melbourne this morning. He was talking about water quality, talking about the completion of a restoration project there for the Crane Creek M1 Canal Flow Restoration Project, which is one of several projects when it comes to water quality and water improvement in the state. Governor DeSantis also talked about continued illegal immigration enforcement efforts going on and was asked about the potential impacts of a new mid-decade census and also the congressional redistricting effort that, as I said just a minute ago, we know the state house is going to look into. Here is what Governor DeSantis had to say about all that just a little bit ago in Melbourne.
You know, we're doing a lot for deporting illegal aliens in Florida. It's obviously a big initiative for the Trump administration, and people saw over Biden just massive influx with no controls or anything. It's really a horrible policy. So we're stepping up to try to correct that. And I called the special session of the Florida Legislature at the beginning of the year, and I was like, listen, state and local agencies, law enforcement, have to be participating. You know, we've got to help. And the reality is, like, I wouldn't have had to done that legislation if everyone was as gung-ho as Wayne, because they would have done it, right? And the same thing with the state agencies. We didn't really need to do that because I was going to order the state agencies, hey, you guys got to be on the team here. But he's done a lot in that regard, probably, you know, over and above, you know, what other sheriffs around the country, you know, have done by a country mile, and that's significant. You know, I'm sick of seeing, you know, some angel mom who's like loses a son or daughter against crime, that somebody who's been deported from this country a couple times and is still here. That's not right. And we have an obligation to defend the people and their well-being here, and that's something I know that Wayne has taken very seriously. So just as governor, we're a law and order state. Our crime rate's at a 50-year low. We've enacted very strong policies. I mean, there's a reason why you've seen other states do very lax policies, and the results are predictably bad. And so we're proud of that. But I'll tell you, you know, leadership is not just me spouting off or me signing legislation. It's folks that are there every day getting the job done. So I appreciate what all our folks around the state are doing, but particularly here in Brevard, you know, I think you guys have been a great example of what law and order means. Okay, anybody have any questions back there?
I have one, Governor.
Well, you'll have to ask him. I don't know what they're doing. I can tell you we had the redistricting fight in 2022. A lot of people remember that. The legislature produced a map that included bizarre racial gerrymandering that had been imposed by a liberal court the previous decade. I was like, I'm vetoing that. I am not signing it. They passed it. I vetoed it. So then we ended up doing a map that took away, you know, the gerrymandering, and it was a much better map. But it's interesting. We had a fight over, you know, most of the map, but then there was part of it that they insisted that now, and they said, oh, you know, governor's map isn't going to be constitutional. Well, the Florida Supreme Court upheld it. And that's what I said at the time would happen, and that's what happened. But if you read that court's opinion, I think that there's problems with our current congressional map in terms of violating the Constitution with racial gerrymandering that has to be addressed, not in North Florida, which we did address, but in Southern Florida. And then you just have this situation where 2020 to now in Florida, there's been a sea change in demography. I mean, we've never seen a state do what Florida's done. And look, there's positives and negatives. I mean, I am not saying, oh, we need more people to move here. I never say that because honestly, we've got a lot, and we've got to deal with the people we have here. But it's a free country, and people are going to go where they think they can be successful. But we had, because of COVID, we were open during COVID. We were law and order when so many of these other places were decaying. There's a lot of reasons why. So if you look now, we're not well apportioned as a state. So I said this when the Florida Supreme Court's decision came out that we are going to have to do a mid-decade redistricting. Now, I did see President Trump posted that he was going to redo the census. I think that should be done. Well, there's two things with the census. First, just how there was a question of, do you count illegal aliens in the census? And my answer is no, you shouldn't, because they're not authorized to be here in the first place. So why would you be counting? Why would you be counting in ways that reward sanctuary states like California who openly flout federal immigration law? It doesn't make any sense. And I don't think the founders intended, like, what, if somebody's vacationing in America during the census period, like they just get counted? Obviously, you want to do people that are lawfully here. So I think that's one thing. But putting that aside, because they tried to do it in the first Trump administration, Justice Roberts basically kicked it for procedural reasons. So it didn't end up, we didn't get that change that a lot of us wanted to see. But even if you take the census as was, where they are counting illegal aliens, Florida still should have had another seat than what we got. And even Biden's administration came out with analysis a couple years later acknowledging that's the case. And so the errors that have been identified, imagine that, all the errors benefited Democrat states. So is that random, or is that something that I don't know? But if they just did what the errors were determined to be, that would give us another seat. Now, they actually did a mid-decade census then, and they didn't count. California would lose 5 or 6 seats. I mean, it wouldn't even be close. Florida, we would probably gain 4 or 5 seats if they did mid-decade census. Definitely we'd gain at least 3. So if they do that, I don't know how quick they can do it. I don't know how that is. But if they did do it, and say came up with something, within like the next 6 months, which I don't know how, that's the Commerce Department and all that to do, and we gained a seat, that would require us to reportion Congressional, because we have 28 now, we'd have 29, 30, 31 maybe, who knows? So obviously you'd have to redraw the lines then. If they just did the changes that even Biden admitted should have happened, then that gives us 1 more seat. We'd have to do it there. Short of that, we're in a situation where, we believe there's defects in the current map. We also believe that the districts are malapportioned because of the explosive growth that we've seen in the state of Florida. And so I think even if they don't do a new census, even if they don't revise the current census, I still think it is appropriate to be doing it. So, I'm going to be working with folks in the legislature, but it'll be something that I think you can anticipate there'll be good debate over. And look, these guys, Rob remembers some of these guys who were in, Thad was in, they draw their state house maps. Governor doesn't have a role in that, fine. The state Senate maps, governor doesn't have a role. Congressional maps requires my signature. And so that's what I tried to tell them 4 years ago. I was like, look, I'm not going to sign this. And so you're in a situation where, it's better to just work, get something that's good, that's going to address, I think, the legal concerns that we have for the rest of the map, but also address the population disparities. There'll be congressional races where like one race gets a lot more votes than another race does. You can compare some of these, and it's like, okay, well, how is that fair that your vote counts a lot less in one district versus the other? So there's a lot, I think, going on there. I wasn't privy to anything that was going on, with the House Speaker's memo, but I can tell you that my folks are working on it.
That was Governor DeSantis earlier talking about redistricting here in Florida. Meanwhile, you saw in one of those boxes as he was speaking, the Texas House of Representatives not able to reach a quorum for an 8th straight day as the standoff continues. A number of Democrats there have fled the state of Texas amid a push to redistrict there. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we will be right back after this, so keep it here on Fox Local and on YouTube. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is time now for our Tampa Connection, and for that we go to Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay. And Nancy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Garrett. Today we're going to start off with an update, a very sad update to a story we've been following since August 1st, and that is that the body of what is believed to be the body of Giovanni Pelletier was found in a retention pond in Manatee County. Now, this body was found on Friday and was in the advanced states of decomposition. Detectives said they believe that Pelletier's body had been in the water for several days before it floated to the surface. Now, detectives as well as Pelletier's cousin said that they believe that this is Giovanni's body. However, the medical examiner has not yet been able to make a positive identification. As I mentioned earlier, Pelletier disappeared on August 1st. His family said he had gotten into a car around 1:30 in the morning on August 1st with a cousin whom he had never met in person before, as well as two of his cousin's friends. Now, that cousin and his friend said Pelletier started acting erratic about 25 minutes into their drive over to Brevard County, so they let him out of the vehicle on I-75 near State Road 70 in Manatee County. His mother says he texted her, "Help me," right before he vanished. Several other family members said they also got disturbing text messages from Pelletier before he disappeared. Now, on Friday, Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivey said there was no indication or evidence that Pelletier ever made it to Brevard County. In fact, he said that evidence indicates the opposite. He says he believes that Pelletier never made it to Brevard County. And again, that body, what is believed to be Giovanni Pelletier, was found in a retention pond on Friday in Manatee County, not far away from where his cousin and those friends said they let him out of the car. Investigators did find his backpack as well as a cell phone in the area. Now, there are still a lot of questions in this case, and we will have more information coming up later tonight. Garrett?
Yeah, like you said, a lot of questions about this. Certainly a tragedy, no matter no matter what happened here.
Yeah, it's definitely a tragedy, and it's certainly not the answer anybody was hoping for. Obviously, his family was hoping to find him. They were hoping, obviously, to find him alive. So this was just devastating for his family to find that body, who they do believe is Giovanni. However, again, the medical examiner has not been able to positively make that identification, but his family, as well as detectives, do believe it is him.
All right, story number 2, and the first day of school for most of the Bay Area.
Yes, that's right. Students, teachers, staff, everybody who works in the schools went back to school today. And in Pinellas County, students at Clearwater High School, they were greeted by the superintendent, the principal, as well as the mayor, Bruce Rector. Now, that's because nearly 90% of the schools in Pinellas County earned an A or a B rating, so they definitely have something to celebrate as they head back to class. Now, the school district also started the first day of school with more bus drivers available today than needed. Now, this is a huge change from previous years when shortages caused concern for many parents. The district is focused on engaging students in innovative ways this year. They have a new mobile innovation lab that's bringing hands-on science and technology experiences directly to middle schoolers. Again, that is happening in Pinellas County. Now, across the bay here in Hillsborough County, the Tampa Police Department installed school zone speed cameras at 13 campuses across the city. That means drivers who are going more than 10 miles above the posted speed limit while the cameras are in operation will get a $100 fine. Also, Hillsborough County parents can now monitor their child's attendance as well as performance through an app. The Hillsborough County School District is rolling out the new HCPS Focus portal. The app promises to give parents real-time notifications on attendance, class schedules, course and test history, and information about event and athletic schedules, academic calendars, and district news. Now, another change this year is Florida law now bans elementary as well as middle schoolers from using cell phones during school hours. Now, that is with limited exceptions. Phones must be turned off and put away. High school students can use cell phones in between classes or if a teacher allows it, provided the school doesn't have a stricter policy already in place. Now, while parents are getting an assist on monitoring how their student is doing in school, Tampa Police Chief Lee Bearcobb wants parents to keep a close eye on what their child is doing online when they are not in school. He advises parents to pick up their child's phone and look at it. He says online bullying, harassment, or threats will not be tolerated. He encourages parents to get to know their school resource officers and talk with their children about the consequences of threats made either in person or online. Last year, the police chief said online threats shot up 50%, and he added that arrests went up 50% as well. Garrett?
Nancy, did you say they had more school bus drivers than needed in Pinellas County? It's almost unheard of these days.
Yes, this is almost unheard of. That's why it was, I guess, a big surprise today to have that excess of bus drivers. Normally, we're always talking about how there's a bus driver shortage and some kids didn't make it to school on time because the bus didn't get there. So this was definitely welcome news and hopefully alleviated some concerns of the parents.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Certainly a good problem to have.
Yes, it's definitely a good problem to have, especially on the first day of school.
Right. Story number 3, and the first day of DOJ audits in Hillsborough County.
Yes, that's right. The state's DOJ team is here in Hillsborough County, and they are trying to find ways to eliminate wasteful spending in local governments. State auditors got in this morning and started looking at the finances. They're looking at the books, if you want to call it that. Now, Florida CFO Blaise Ingoglia says he does expect to find examples of waste in Hillsborough County because he's found it in other areas across the state. Now, state auditors have already visited Manatee as well as Pinellas counties. In late July, Governor DeSantis and Ingoglia announced its Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, task force. It is conducting reviews of the data systems, physical premises, and personnel in cities and counties to try to find waste, fraud, and abuse in municipal spending. We're told that the task force is looking at areas like local government contracts and jobs related to DEI, electric vehicles, solar power, and carbon reduction initiatives. Ingoglia says the goal is to find ways the governments can save money so that property taxes can be lowered.
Yeah, we are seeing more of those Doge audits in a lot of places. First day of Doge audits here in Orlando as well. We know they were in Orange County, I guess it was last week. So starting to see them in more and more places, Nancy.
Yeah, so definitely popping up all across the state. Now, Ngolia, he does say that the auditors have already found what he calls egregious waste. However, he would not go into details about what exactly they found. He did say that he wants to finish these audits before releasing the details of what they found, and he does expect the audits to end within the next 60 days. Now, after that, he says it's going to be up to county officials and taxpayers to decide if they want to take the advice and put it to use. Garrett?
All right. It's going to be interesting to see once the results start rolling in from these, I think, to see what they found in all these different places.
Yeah, it will definitely be interesting to see what they found and if they're finding the same stuff in each county, or if each county has something that's a little bit different. You know, and again, our CFO says he wants these governments to find this waste so that they can start saving money to lower those property taxes. So it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out.
Yeah, certainly something to watch. Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us for our Tampa Connection today.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Today was supposed to be the start of 2 weeks of public hearings in front of the Public Service Commission, really looking at the rate hike that Florida Power and Light is hoping to see approved. It's a nearly $10 billion rate hike. It is historic in a lot of ways, according to officials. That $10 billion rate hike request is actually considered to be the largest rate hike request in American history. But we learned on Friday, according to filings in this case with the PSC, that FPL has proposed a settlement. This is an agreement with several of the business groups that are kind of involved in this case. And so today, at the start of what would have been the 2 weeks of public hearings, they talked about that settlement and asked for a suspension of those proceedings, of those hearings, while this settlement is negotiated, while it's finalized, while these different parties kind of come to that agreement. Now, the state's consumer advocate is opposed to that, but just a little bit ago, in fact, just moments before our show started, the PSC agreed to suspend those proceedings, basically putting on hold these hearings, the rest of this case, while FPL looks to iron out this settlement. I do want to play for you, as we heard from representatives from FPL, from other groups as well, FPL arguing why they believe this case should be suspended, and the other interveners in the case who are not part of that settlement, not part of that agreement, argued their opposition to it and why they said the hearings should continue forward.
The first issue, and I think probably the most important issue, is what the joint movements are asking you for here is exactly what the commission did in 2021 with FPL's rate case there. That is, there was a contiguous hearing with all the evidence before the commission, the rebuttal, the intervener testimony, as well as settlement testimony in one place with a filed settlement. So the commission had the benefit of a holistic story. I will note that on page 3 of the response and opposition filed a couple hours ago, it seems that the non-signatories think that the joint movements are asking for the commission to only hear a hearing on the settlement. That is not at all what we are asking for. Again, we are asking, and I hope that clears up perhaps some of the opposition here. We know that everyone who is not a party is entitled to full due process. That's exactly what the commission did in the 2021 proceeding. And it's notable that order in 2021 went up to the Supreme Court twice, and we heard on the first time that it's important for the parties who are not signatories to have the due process of law on all material disputed facts. That's what we did. It went up again, and the amended order was blessed. So we have recently just heard from the Supreme Court that the process the commission followed afforded due process and was the right one. The second thing I'd like to note is the difficult position if we proceed today that our witnesses would be in, and there's a few points there. First of all, and I'm speaking only hypothetically, imagine that a number or amount changes in the settlement, or even more poignant, I believe, if something is removed in the settlement that is part of our as-filed case. We would put our witnesses in a position now of saying, well, I know I said that when I filed direct testimony, but that has changed. They're under oath. What do they do? So each question, our witnesses will have to think, am I saying the truth here? If I'm not saying something accurate, what do I do because there's a non-disclosure agreement? This is confidential information. And I think that's my second point that's very important is the proper way for FPL to proceed as a publicly traded company is when we have a final signed settlement agreement, we file a Form 8K with the Securities and Exchange Commission, along with that settlement, telling the world this is what we've done. I worry that as my witnesses are on the stand today, if asked the right question and they don't perceive that there is a problem, there could be a violation of SEC Rule FD today, to where they disclose material non-public information, to where I have to go back then and make a 8K filing afterwards. So you could see the kind of the paradox that our witnesses would be in. Am I telling the truth? Is this confidential? Am I going to do an 8K or a SEC violation on the stand today? And the last thing is, it just seems kind of absurd that that the non-signatories would want a process by which they couldn't have fulsome cross-examination. I mean, think about, let's say, if something is X in the as-filed case, it's Y in the settlement. I would think those parties would like to say, hey, it was X there, it's Y now, why the change? What convinced you that Y was okay? We won't be able to do that today, and it just doesn't make any sense to do that in a disjointed way to where you can't hear the full story before you, and frankly, for our witnesses to be able to give commensurate and timely context to that full story. So those two alone, following the Supreme Court's precedent that we just got, and the problems that it would cause for our witnesses, at least in my mind, says there's really not a rational way to handle this, but continue until we could get the settlement filed in a week and a half, less than a week and a half, maybe even sooner. As to the opposition that was filed today, one of the first argument is that this is untimely and then that this is a continuance and that it should have been filed at least 5 days before the hearing. I would note that while this is not an emergency, as the non-signatories say, it is certainly an emergent situation. Settlements, as I'm sure we all know, are dynamic, they are fluid. As much as FPL would like to, we can't control when counterparties come to the realization that they want to sign on. And I will tell the commission that as soon as we had confidence that we had something real, we notified the commission. And I really wouldn't want to think of not doing that, showing up and saying nothing today, and then perhaps trying to file a settlement in the middle of the hearing after you've wasted multiple days. So it just makes sense that this commission must have a degree of reasonableness and discretion to say, this is akin to an emergent situation that there's really no rational choice, again, back to my prior arguments, but to do a continuance. Administrative efficiency was argued in the response in opposition. I think it's the dead opposite, commissioners. This is not efficient to go forward today. It's a jumbled record. It's going to be a convoluted record. And the disjointed issues and the problems that I noted show it's not efficient. And you know what? Even if we proceed today, we're going to be back. We're going to be back for a settlement hearing eventually if the settlement's filed. So it seems to make good efficient sense to come back one time and hear it all together.
We vehemently object to a continuance or a suspension or an amendment, however they want to phrase it, because this has been planned for months. There has been tremendous amount of effort and taxpayer money spent on this hearing. And we vehemently object to this being continued to the extent that it has now been clarified that there is no objection to both a hearing on the petition as well as a hearing on the settlement agreement itself. That does alleviate some concern. However, we just really want to make sure that we have every opportunity provided to us, guaranteed to us by Florida statutes in Chapter 120 to be able to cross-examine and exercise every other right on behalf of the overwhelming majority of Florida Power and Light's customers. We believe that all of the issues that have been cited by Mr. Burnett are issues and problems of FPL and the signatory's own creation. All the issues about everything with the formal filings and whatnot, that is. We are here because they filed a request for $10 billion. We are here because they filed this filing on Friday. And although we had technically 7 days under the rule, we expedited our efforts in the midst of preparing for hearing to provide a response to inform both the commission and all the other parties of our position on this. We filed that response less than 1 business day after they filed this notice on Friday. So I also want to make that clear that to the extent that there's any complaint that we just filed this hours ago, that was because it was still within 1 business day of this notice being filed on Friday at 4 p.m. I also want to point out that emergent is not the same as emergency. And again, that is another issue of their own creation. We insist and demand our hearing on both the petition and this motion for this reported settlement agreement. And I will defer to my other parties here for any other comments they have.
Lula. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would echo Ms. Westling's comments and add that Florida Power and Light and some of the parties that have indicated they are moving towards settlement are correct, that our largest concern is our due process rights and ensuring that we have the right to cross-examine on the as-filed case. And our concern is that even if there is a settlement, as was noted in the response, 95% of the cross-exhibits that have been filed in this case have been filed by the 3 parties that have not indicated that they have settled. I think that's a good proxy for how much cross-time you could expect in the as-filed case as well. That 95% of the cross-time would be from the 3 groups of parties that have not indicated that they're going to settle. And so our largest concern is that we still believe that even if there is a settlement, that we need 2 weeks on the as-filed case, plus whatever additional time is necessary to hear testimony on the settlement itself. And so our primary concern is making sure that we have time to do the cross-examinations that we need, that the commission has time to hear those cross-examinations. And so I just want to reiterate that we really do believe that we need the 2 weeks to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Fair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity to address you here. The folks down at the other end of the table have made some good points regarding the procedure here. You've heard me say this before. You make the procedural decisions. I strongly agree with the points made by Mr. Marshall just now. The critical issue here is that parties who do not join the settlement, who oppose the settlement, whatever it turns out to be, we haven't seen it, will have a full opportunity to litigate not only the settlement, but litigate all issues presented in FPL's base case. FPL's base case is the necessary evidence upon which any evaluation of the justness and reasonableness of rates coming out of a settlement might be. We have to have a full opportunity. I concur, based on everything I know from talking to everybody in this case, that Mr. Marshall is right, that we need something like the 2 weeks scheduled on the base case, plus a reasonable amount of time in addition to that. I mean, it's not an additional 2 weeks, but it's an additional 2, 3, 4 days, something like that, maybe. That's all. Our due process rights pursuant to 120 and fundamental due process rights, and I think everybody down there agrees, we are entitled to our full due process rights to litigate every issue in the case that we want to litigate, and that's our point, and that's our request. Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, the Public Service Commission did agree to suspend those proceedings right now while that settlement is kind of ironed out and finalized. So the timeline now moving forward, not quite as clear. We will see where things go. But again, there is that settlement that is kind of pending right now after FPL made that filing on Friday, that they are in those discussions and have proposed a settlement in this case. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back with much more after this, so keep it here on Fox Local and on YouTube. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon. One of the big national stories that we're tracking today out of Washington, D.C., where earlier today, President Donald Trump declared a public safety emergency and announced a federal takeover of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. He also announced that he'd be deploying the National Guard to the District of Columbia, helping to reduce crime and also to help with homelessness in the district there. I want to play for you part of the news conference earlier today at the White House as President Trump spoke about these new steps.
Releasing illegal alien gang members onto the streets in 2022, nearly 70% of criminals arrested in Washington went unprosecuted. That's not going to happen with the group we have standing aside and standing behind me. And at the Metropolitan Police Department, it's now reached a small number relatively compared to what it was, but it's thousands of people. You know, we have thousands of police. I was told today, sir, they want more police. I heard a number, 3,500 police. That's a lot of police. 3,500. I thought they were going to say, we only have 30 policemen or women. He said, we have 3,500. We need more. You don't need more. That's so many. I never heard. That's like an army. How could you need more than 3,000? It just happened 2 minutes ago. Sir, they've requested more police. Oh, what do they have? About 3,500. I said, 3,500? This is not a big area. It's ridiculous. What you need is rules and regulations, and you need the right people to implement them. And we have the right people here, that I can tell you. Look at the border. Biden said, there's nothing you can do. Kamala was the border czar. She never called one of the Border Patrol agents who are great. ICE is great. Never spoke to anybody. Never went there. But she was the border czar. And everybody said it was impossible to fix. I fixed it in 3 months. No, really. I fixed it the first week, but really fixed it over the last couple of months. And I mean, literally to a point where, as I said, 0 illegals entering our country in the last 90 days. Pretty amazing. It's time for dramatic action. We're going to do the same thing over here. It's going to be a very safe city very soon. We're not looking to just take years, because a lot of people die in years. And we've got incredible people in this country, except we have to allow them to do their job. And that we will deliver like nobody's ever delivered before. I actually think it's easy. You know, if you're competent, it's easy. If you're incompetent, it's impossible. But I'm very competent. Last week, my administration surged 500 federal agents into the district, including from the FBI, ATF, DEA, Park Police, the U.S. Marshal Service, the Secret Service, and the Department of Homeland Security. You know, a lot of nations, they don't have anything like that. They got some police, and they're rough police. They don't have DEA, ATF, FBI, Park Police, U.S. Marshal Service, Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security. They got some police, but they're rough police, and they do their job. They don't have crime. We're not going to have crime either. They made dozens of arrests, and that's what starts to happen. Again, cashless bail. Watch what we do with that. Today, we're formally declaring a public safety emergency. This is an emergency. This is a tragic emergency. And it's embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful capital was, with graffiti all over the walls. It's another part of it, by the way, because we're talking about safety, but we're also talking about beautification. We have the most beautiful, potentially, capital in the world. We always had. But people come from Iowa, they come from Indiana, they come and then they get mugged. Not going to happen. Keep coming, because by the time you get your trip set, it's going to be safe again, and it's going to be clean very quickly. We're going to replace the medians that are falling down all over the roads. We're going to replace the potholes. We're going to put a nice new coat of asphalt over the top. No, we don't have to rip the road out and spend 7 years building a new road because they cut everything. Because some designers said, well, we need a 1/4 of an inch more turn for safety reasons. No, we're going to do it right. We're going to get it done quickly. So today we're declaring public safety emergency in the District of Columbia, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department as of this moment. And I'll be making the appropriate notifications to Congress and to the mayor, our new DEA administrator, who's one of the top in the country. He better be Terry. If you're not, I'm going to get rid of you so fast. Terry Cole. Terry, thanks. Very good. We just got him. Most highly recommended person. And you'll be designated as the interim federal commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Department. Okay? And you run them tough. They're good. You have a lot of good people. You have people that shouldn't be there. You also have people that shouldn't be there. They got in there because of woke. But you have a lot of great police, and those people are the ones that want to help you. This city will no longer be a sanctuary for illegal alien criminals. We will have full, seamless, integrated cooperation at all levels of law enforcement, and we'll deploy officers across the district with an overwhelming presence. You'll have more police, and you'll be so happy because you'll be safe. When you walk down the street, you're going to see police, or you're going to see FBI agents. We're going to have a lot of agents on the street. You're going to have a lot of essentially military, and we will bring in the military if it's needed, by the way. We're going to have National Guard. But Pete Hegseth will tell you about it. We will bring in the military if needed. People say, oh, that's so terrible. He's going to bring in, it's been used many times over the years. I don't think we'll need it. I think we've got so many great people, including the people that are in the police department with proper leadership. They'll immediately begin massive enforcement operations targeting known gangs, drug dealers, and criminal networks to get them the hell off the street, maybe get them out of the country, because a lot of them came into our country illegally. They shouldn't have been allowed in. They come from Venezuela. They come from all over the world. We're going to get them the hell out. They won't be here long. But some of these people, a lot of them, are homegrown criminals. And these are bad people. These are rough people. And this is just a list of some of the people that were given to me today that were criminals removed from the D.C. streets this weekend. They were rough and tough. But we're rougher and tougher. Look at these people here. Nothing, you know. They're not going to be your local school teacher. Look at this guy. He has killed people numerous times. They're not going to be an asset. They will never be an asset to society. I don't care. I know we all want to say, oh, they're going to be rehabbed. It's not going to be rehabbed.
That was President Trump from his news conference earlier today at the White House. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we will be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. The NFL preseason is continuing. The first round of preseason games is in the books, and over the weekend, the Tampa Bay Bucks dominated their first preseason matchup. They played the Tennessee Titans, beat them 29-7. One of the notable things on the field that you saw, former Florida Gator Kyle Trask played well. He is competing for the backup quarterback position, as is new addition Teddy Bridgewater, who we've talked about on the show here. He did not play in the preseason game, but Kyle Trask, former Florida Gator, played well. We heard from him and also from Todd Bowles after the game.
Coach, would you expect, I know you got to practice in Pittsburgh against the Steelers, but would you expect maybe Teddy Bridgewater to get into the game 2, or will you wait till game 3?
We'll see by the practice reps he gets and the reps he gets against the Steelers, how much he grasps, and if we like to get him in game 2. If not, we'd like to have him ready to play a lot of game 3.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Last question from Jenna Lee.
Hey, Coach, with all the injuries you have, is there anybody that you think might be able to come back this week?
Not until I see him out there practicing, Jenna.
I didn't know if there's anybody that was returning that you thought might return to practice this week. That's
not until I really see him out there practicing, honestly.
I thought I did a good job just staying within the rhythm of the game, trying to stay as consistent as possible. Not trying to do anything special, just play within the scheme. Try to limit the negative plays, don't turn the ball over, and just keep the ball moving forward.
Now, there was a play when you were standing in the pocket, waiting for Ryan Miller to clear. You did. You threw the ball on time. It took a wallop, too. But what do you like about that play, the payoff that comes from taking that hit?
Oh, those are the best moments as a quarterback, to be honest, when you stand in there and, get through your progression. And that's when you get those big hits, is when you're able to stand in there and the guys can open up for you down the field. Felt great. It's one of those where you throw it and you're like, well, either the crowd's going to cheer or they're not. So no. And then if the other sideline starts cheering, it's like, that's terrible. But it was one of those where the crowd started cheering and I was on the ground. I was like, all right, that probably went well. Because I saw it open up and I saw the window for it, so I just let it rip.
We didn't see Emeka long, but you hit him on a big play. What's it like to connect with him that early in the preseason?
It's great. He's super mature. He's a quick learner, plays hard. He's just a great player to be around. And then, I knew that he was going to be fired up to make some plays, his first NFL action. So I'm glad that we were able to connect. And unfortunately, we didn't get to connect again on that down the field shot, but he's done a great job and he's going to continue to do so.
Kyle, do you think you needed to come out and play well tonight with the obvious signing of Teddy this week?
I'm just concerned about being the best that I can be. My whole career is just control you can control. And I wake up every single day and I try to be the best that I can be. I try to be the best that I can be at practice, my routine, whatever it may be in the game, obviously. And that's always been my focus, and it will continue to be my focus going forward.
Looked like your decision making tonight was quick. Is that something you're most pleased with?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely pleased with that. I think that's just the confidence within the system. Being around Grizz, another year. Obviously, he was with us last year. Similar scheme, so there's some turnover there. But yeah, no, I feel really confident with this playbook, and hopefully I was able to show that tonight.
For the most part, were you able to go through your first read and hit them, or did you have to work up your progressions?
Well, I hit my first read a couple times, and I also hit some progressions some other times. So I love when the first read's open, but sometimes it's not. And it's a mixed bag out there. I would say a lot of the throws I got to my second or third read, but yeah, always hoping for the first one to be open. It makes your job a lot easier.
What can you say about the play of Ryan Miller tonight?
Yeah, no, I thought he played great. he's had a great camp. You know, he's always made plays, you know, the past couple of years. So I know he's someone you can count on in a game-like scenario, and you know, I'm really happy for him. I thought he played great. He knows how to uncover and get open and find the right spots to be in. He just got a great feel for the game, and I'm happy that he was able to get some good receptions and some good targets tonight.
Kyle, what did you think of the play of the running backs after Rashad went out?
I thought it was great. I was super impressed with us, with our just ability to run the ball. You know, they knew we were going to run the ball, but still they struggled to stop it. So that's what you want to see is from your O linemen and your tight ends blocking down there in the trenches. So it was great to see all the running backs getting a good amount of carries and keeping those chains moving forward.
What was their explanation for bringing in Teddy in the first place? Did they tell you why they were doing that? I know you can only control what you can control, but were you puzzled by that move?
You know, I never got a direct answer to answer your question, but I mean, you know, they've told me, or I've heard through the grapevine, you know, he brings a lot of experience, and you know, I've met him and you know been around him for about, I guess, a week now, and you know, he's great, and he's a great person to be in the room. He has great ideas, and you know, it's always a good thing when you can bring in experience into a quarterback room, and it really, you know, can bring in some extra knowledge, and you know, it's never a bad thing.
I know you try to execute.
We will see what shakes out as NFL preseason continues. Well, thanks for joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer. We are here weekdays at 2 o'clock live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are standing by waiting to hear from the mayor of D.C., Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, expected to speak today after President Trump's announcement. That's expected around 3 o'clock. Thanks for joining us. We hope you have a great rest of your day. And as we wrap up here, give you a view of Washington, D.C. Have a great afternoon.